This is Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And coming up here on today's edition of Philadelphia Eagles Now, I want to have a conversation that's a tough conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to be had that nobody is willing to have. Has Howie Roseman failed this version of the 2025 Philadelphia Eagles? Also, we're going to take your questions by using the hashtag Eagles or sending in a super chat as part of our mailbag right here on the channel. All right, let's have this conversation here. Has Eagles general manager Howie Roseman failed the 2025 version of the Eagles? What I mean by that is everything that I'm going to outline here on this show. And it's not to say that I think Howie should get fired or Howie is on the hot seat. Don't even hit me with that crazy narrative, right? Do not get it twisted. Howie Roseman is still the best general manager in football, but every GM has misses. Howie has had some over his career as a general manager, and year in, year out, it is up to the GM to put together the best roster possible. And I don't know if Howie's been able to do that with this 2025 Eagles team. Now, what Howie did in 2024 was special. The Eagles had such a loaded roster, full of premier players, all pros, Pro Bowlers, potential future Hall of Famers. The Eagles went on a historic run that was a dominant run, where from week 4, the only game that they lost the rest of the way was a game where Jalen Hurts was knocked out. Their playoff run, incredibly dominant. It was capped off by one of the biggest beatdowns that we've ever seen in the history of Super Bowls at the NFL level, when Philadelphia absolutely annihilated the Kansas City Chiefs and denied their quest for a three-peat. And I think you can make the argument that that 2024 team, with what they accomplished in 2024, how they did it, the run that they went on, and the talent that they had, it might go down as the most dominant single roster in the history of the league. If not the best, it's certainly up there. But right now, we're talking about an Eagles team that is in a Super Bowl window. And I'm not sure right now, as the Eagles are 4-2, back-to-back embarrassing losses, that Howie Roseman did enough to address the weaknesses and the concerns and the questions that we had about this ball club going into this year. Now, you flip back to what Howie did in 2024 to build that team into being a Super Bowl winner. What he did in 2017, a marvelous job. A lot of the moves that he made in the short term for that 2017 run paid huge dividends. And it was a big reason why the Eagles finally got over the hump and hoisted their first Lombardi trophy and dethroned Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Last year, the Eagles knocked off Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And a huge reason for that, the moves that Howie made as the GM. Drafted Quinyon Mitchell in the first round. Drafted Cooper DeJean in the second round. 2 rookie starters for the number 1 overall defense in the game. Howie also drafted Jalyx. He played a huge role as a pass rusher in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. Howie Roseman signed Zack Baun. Vic Fangio and Howie looked at him as a player who could play off-ball linebacker instead of edge rusher, because that's the position he primarily played with the Saints. Zack Baun went on to be one of the MVPs of the defense, changed them as a coverage and run unit, but also as a pass rusher. He was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year and a first-team All-Pro, and he's emerged as one of the top off-ball linebackers alongside Fred Warner. And they signed him for pennies. The Eagles signed Saquon Barkley. Top 5 in MVP voting, he won Offensive Player of the Year. Howie Roseman signed Mekhi Becton. The Jets didn't want him any longer. It looked like his career was hanging on by a thread. He was one of the best guards in football, and a big reason why Saquon ran for more than 2,000 yards and set the single-season record for rushing yards, regular season, postseason combined. The Eagles realized in 2023, after they let CJ Gardner-Johnson walk, that they missed his toughness, his spirit, his ball-hawking abilities. his swagger, and his confidence. Howie realized that the defense missed a level of intensity that CJGJ brought them. So he brought him back. And he was a starter at that safety spot and one of the top safeties in the game last year. He restructured the contract of Josh Sweat, made him much more affordable. Sweat had a great year. Howie Roseman hired Vic Fangio, best defensive coordinator in football last year, for the number one unit, and hired Kellen more after the Brian Johnson disaster, and the offense went on to have a terrific season. Now, as far as the moves that Howie made this offseason, I get letting Darius Slay walk. 35-year-old corner, clearly declining, knee issues. He's played pretty well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I can understand why the Eagles wanted to let a high-priced veteran go. But it was always a no-brainer to bring back Isaiah Rodgers. Anytime he played for the Eagles last year, he played really well. When he was thrust into action, he played lockdown play at corner. He was also a very valuable returner. This year, the Eagles cannot field a frickin' kick. And he signed with the Minnesota Vikings on a very affordable contract. 2 years, $11 million. And right now, he is a starting outside corner for Brian Flores, who is one of the top defensive coordinators in football. You're telling me the Eagles couldn't have signed Rodgers to a 2-year, $11 million deal? Instead, they went cheap with Adoree Jackson. They banked on the development of Kelee Ringo. And I know that Kelee, they wanted to see him play a little bit longer. That's also on the Eagles coaching staff and on Howie for missing on their evaluation on Kelee. And you had issues at corner 2, letting Slay go. It was a no-brainer to bring back Rodgers. And what is he doing this year? Literally one of the best corners in the game at a bargain price. And Howie loves these discounted deals. Overall PFF grade of 82.2. That ranks 4th among 169 corners. A coverage grade of 86.1. Second in the NFL. He has 1 pick. He has allowed a passer rating when targeted, a 44.9, and he has 2 defensive touchdowns. Both of them came in the same game. But those numbers are the whole sample size. And if Brian Flores is going to trust you, that's pretty telling. And now here we are going into week 7. Adoree Jackson, cheap, and he stinks. A flat-out F grade against his former team in the Giants. He was bad in coverage. He couldn't tackle. And did you see his attempt to stop Cam Scadaboo on one of his 3 touchdowns? Just put a shoulder into him. Didn't even try to wrap up. You think that's bringing down one of the more physical running backs in the game? Kelee Ringo, on the other hand, is big and fast, but can't cover or tackle. Howie Roseman traded for Jakorian Bennett. He was injured with the Raiders, now on IR with the Eagles. He's given you nothing. What's been a big problem on offense for this Eagles team this year? Really, 2. They can't run the football, and their offensive line has been bad. The Eagles could have paid and afforded to give Mekhi Becton $10 million per year. He was a road grader in the ground game in 2024. A lot of Saquon Barkley's success running behind Mekhi Becton and a healthy Landon Dickerson. Dickerson's been banged up and bad all season. You lose Mekhi Becton, and I know that Tyler Steen has played pretty well this year, but he's not Mekhi Becton, and he's not the mauler that Becton is. And what's unfortunate for Becton is that he's gone to the Chargers, hasn't really played that well. He resurrected his career with the Eagles. He was a great scheme fit for the Eagles. Jeff Stoutland really liked him. You turn garbage into gold. It made so much sense to bring him back and retain him, for him to continue to play really well as he finally found himself at the guard spot after he was a failed offensive tackle, and he let him walk. After it was a great signing and a great player developmental story. Now, the Eagles were never going to give Josh Sweat $19 million per year. He was another homegrown player who the Eagles really developed, who was great last year, had 11 sacks back in 2022, and I get not giving him $19 million per season. But the issue with letting him go is that the Eagles never found an edge rusher replacement. They were banking on Nolan Smith, who's been injured throughout his NFL career and at Georgia, to stay healthy and continue his development. Prior to his injury, wasn't doing much. The Eagles were relying on Jalyx Hunt to take that leap. But Jalyx Hunt, a raw player who started his college career as a safety at Cornell and then went to Houston Baptist. It's not a football factory by any means. And Nolan Smith hurt once again. Jalyx Hunt has no sacks. And the leading sack producer at edge is Darius Smith, 1.5 sacks, who is an older veteran who you signed off the street after week 1. Howie Roseman didn't find an edge rusher replacement. And the Eagles can't get after the quarterback consistently. I always hated the CJ Gardner-Johnson trade. And I understand that he's not an easy player to deal with. He's not an easy player to manage. And this has nothing to do with what the Eagles got back for CJ Gardner-Johnson or the fact that the Texans released him and now he's on the Ravens practice squad alongside Quinyon Green, who the Eagles got back in this trade. My point here in trading away CJ Gardner-Johnson, when he was with this team in 2022, he was great. When he was with this team in 2024, he was great. In 2023, this Eagles defense was soft. So far this year, this Eagles defense has been soft. Who sets the tone? And who has set the tone with this Eagles defense? It has been CJ Gardner-Johnson. They could have used his fire, his hustle, his physicality, his fearlessness against the Giants. Instead, Cam Skattebo ate up, and the Eagles looked scared to tackle him. You didn't have to trade away CJ Gardner-Johnson. You could have managed his personality in the locker room. And you lost him, and now you're missing him. Drew Makuba's been good against the run, bad in coverage. So many blown coverages for the rookie. Howie Roseman traded 2 picks for Tank Bigsby. He stinks. He was supposed to give this team some juice as a kickoff returner. He can't even field a kick. And in the backfield, he's not getting any carries because you have A.J. Dillon and Will Shipley. And I had some high hopes for Bigsby as a kickoff returner. But for this team so far, he's been so bad that he got benched against the Giants. So this Eagles team right now, going into week 7, has a lot of holes. They have a lot of issues. They have a lot of problems. And they have a lot of things to fix. And a lot of those issues are due to the roster construction by Howie Roseman. So that's why I think Howie Roseman may have failed this version of the 2025 Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to take your questions on the other side. Hashtag Eagles, send in a super chat. But our sponsor for today's Philadelphia Eagles now, our fine friends at PrizePicks. Join the millions of users and sign up today with the #1 daily fantasy sports app in the industry. It's very easy to play. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win up to 2,000 times your money. I know all of you know ball. Turn your takes into cash all season long on PrizePicks. They also have a couple of new features here. PrizePicks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Josh Allen's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on PrizePicks. Follow other PrizePicks players as well directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. 3-pick power play for some Sunday NFL action. Matthew Stafford against a banged-up Ravens defense? Yeah, more than 260.5 passing yards. Baker Mayfield, more than 238.5 passing yards. Jaden Daniels, more than 217.5 passing yards. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Let's open up the floor and take some of your questions here. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr. The Eagles have lost 2 games in a row. Both of those defeats very concerning, and I know a lot of you have questions. I have answers, and a lot of you want to get your frustrations off your chest. So let's do that with the mailbag here. Excited to dive in and talk all things Eagles with all of the real ones and the people who are legends who have subscribed to this channel. Bryce Blackwell with a $5 super chat. The offseason losses, especially Isaiah Rodgers, are killing us. The coaching is bad. Teams know the offense, and the defense is leaky. It feels a lot like 2023. Now, in 2023, to refresh your memory, the Eagles started 10-1, but a lot of those wins were very fluky. Then the Eagles' offense got exposed. They were vanilla. They were easy to predict, and then they lost 6 of 7 games at the end of the year. Here in 2025, Eagles started off 4-0, but a lot of those games, the Eagles were lucky to win. A lot of those wins were fluky. And the offense all year has been predictable. It has been very mundane. They have been inconsistent. They don't have an identity. They don't do anything well. They've kind of been exposed the last couple of games by the Broncos, by the Giants, and in the second half against the Bucs when Jalen Hurts did not complete a single pass. So I've been waiting to say this is a repeat of 2023, but there are some 2023 elements with the late season collapse to how the Eagles have started and played so far this season. I will say on defense, the Eagles are a lot more talented than they were in 2023. But against the Giants, that defensive effort, soft. 2023, what were the Eagles? Soft. And it's inexcusable. It's unacceptable. And some of the offseason losses have really hurt the Eagles. It was always a no-brainer to bring back Isaiah Rodgers. The Vikings signed him to a 2-year, $11 million deal. And I get letting Darius Slay go. But you let Slay and Rodgers go. And you replace those 2 players with Adoree Jackson, who stinks. Vic Fangio said before the year he took a shot at Adoree. He said the Titans let him go, the Giants let him go for a reason. And we're seeing why. The guy's a scrub. Can't tackle, can't cover. Meanwhile, Isaiah Rodgers has the second highest coverage grade among all corners in the NFL, and the Vikings got him for a 2-year deal worth $11 million. Bad miss by Howie, and a rare miss by Howie. Keys, $5 super chat. Rushing ties directly to blocking. If we block, Saquon wins. The problem is the quarterback can't read the defense and has no accuracy. All right, so a 2-parter here. This Eagles offensive line has regressed severely this season. Landon Dickerson, when he was in the game, was not right and was not playing well. Cam Jurgens, offseason back surgery, he got a bag. Hasn't been good. Jordan Mailata, first couple of games was good. Last couple of games has not been good. Against the Giants, really struggled against some premier edge rushers. Against the Denver Broncos, really struggled against some premier edge rushers. Lane Johnson, dominant for so long, in and out of the lineup, banged up, and even he has struggled. We've seen the Giants and the Broncos with the likes of Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and the Broncos, Jonathan Cooper, and Nick Bonito, really best Mailata and Lane. And so it has been a left-to-right collective failure for the Eagles offensive line. And for me, the run game comes down to this. I don't think it's a Saquon problem. Saquon, when he actually gets space, looks awesome. But the amount of times he's getting space is so extremely rare. And the yards before contact certainly backs that up. Last year, it was just under 4 yards before contact. This year, it's been around 1. And how many times has he had negative runs? It's because the Eagles' offensive line is getting blown up. As far as the Jalen Hurts portion of your super chat there, the quarterback has no accuracy. He can't read the defense. Look, I think Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore have done a good job in years prior of hiding Hurts' weaknesses. Against man, he is terrific. Literally, statistically, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. against zone, he really struggles. And when you're going up against a zone, you do have to read the defense a little bit more. Hurts has even said that and admitted that. You have to throw with anticipation and layer balls. He's not been able to do that. And so that's a little bit of a problem. Accuracy-wise, I don't think that's been a huge problem for him throughout his career. He has been a great deep ball thrower. This year, though, that has been lacking. Addison Hoover, $2 super chat. Hey, Chase, Howie needs to trade for a corner too. I agree. Howie Roseman, if you're watching, you need to make a trade for a corner too. You look at what the Jags did. They beat the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. They trade for Greg Newsome. Now, the Browns and the Jags kind of swapped starting corners. And for the Browns, that was more of a salary cap relief move. But the Jags understand, hey, we got something special going here. We need a better corner. Let's go get one. Keely Ringo can't play. He was okay against the Bucs, limited targets. Last 2 games, he's been really bad. And now that Quinyon Mitchell might be out with the hamstring injury for a long time, your level of confidence in Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson, very small. Howie traded for Jakorian Bennett on injured reserve. Don't even know what he can do. I think corner 2 is a huge problem for the Eagles. Another trade that I think Howie Roseman needs to make, trading for a pass rusher. This pass rush, non-existent. They can't get any production from the edge rusher spot. Jalyx Hunt, 0 sacks. Nolan Smith, injured reserve. Za'Darius Smith leads all edge rushers on this team with 1.5 sacks. The Eagles signed him after week 1. It's a problem. Money Mac, $2 super chat. Thoughts on elevating Britton Covey for punts and kickoff? I love it. And I know that Jahan Dotson has been sure-handed at punt returner, but Britton Covey in 2023 was one of the best producers as far as punt returners across the NFL. When he was at Utah, a little bit small, he just has a knack for picking up yards as a punt returner. And how often this year have the Eagles had poor field position to start drives? That's because of a lack of punt return juice. And these kickoffs, it's mystifying. The Eagles can't field a kick. I would put Britton Covey back there. You know that he can field it. You know that he can find lanes and pick up some yards. He's very talented in that regard. Elevate him from the practice squad. That's a move I think the Eagles should and have to make week 7 against the Vikings. Because special teams right now, as far as the return game, really hurting Philadelphia. Cody English, should we start Tanner McKee against the Vikings to send a message to Jalen like they used to do in the old days? They're not going to do it. And I don't think the Eagles have a quarterback controversy. I will say this, though. I'd be very interested to see what this offense would look like with Tanner McKee, because you'd be able to find out who the problem is and who's to blame. Is it Kevin Patullo? Is it Jalen Hurts? Now, right now, I think it's a little bit of both. But one thing that McKee does that Hurts does not do, throws wide receivers open, gives them an opportunity to make plays, will throw some 50-50 balls, and throws with better anticipation and layer some balls. Hurts doesn't really do that and struggles in those areas. So if the offense continues to sputter and Hurts continues to play poorly, I would make that decision more of a realistic choice. And I would think about it a little bit longer and harder, as difficult as that might be. Lion Fighter, even though there are 11 games left, I don't feel they are going to try anything different. Do you honestly? I think they will. You know, to Nick Sirianni's credit, they have done a pretty decent job of making some in-season adjustments. They started off as a pass-happy team in 2021. They turned into a run-heavy team. In 2022, you know, they were pretty damn good all year, but they became an explosive play offense, and they had great balance. Jalen Hurts was runner-up in MVP voting, but Miles Sanders that year had a career year. In 2023, They turned it over a lot, and they had no identity. In 2024, after a 2-2 start, they became a run-heavy team. So they have made in-season adjustments, and I think Sirianni knows this is one of his talents as a head coach, that they need to make some changes, and they need to alter some things and make some adjustments. You'd be insane to not. Currently rebranding. I do believe that Kevin Patullo is not it. Could we demote or fire Kevin Patullo and promote the quarterback's coach? That's really the only solution. Like, I don't think you can go with an external option here and have that be the end-all be-all in solving your offensive issues. I mean, what are you going to do? Hire John Gruden as an offensive consultant? That's one thing. I might do that, right? Hire John Gruden as an offensive consultant. Are you going to hire him as the offensive coordinator, an offensive play caller? I don't think that he can just come in not knowing this offense all that well, start calling plays, and you see immediate results, right? What other OCs are out there? There aren't many, because all of them have been scooped up. They're hired. They're employed because they're good. You know, if the Dolphins fire Mike McDaniel, he's done some nice things with the Dolphins. I know right now the offense isn't great, but I do like the creativity. I like how he's a Kyle Shanahan disciple. I'm a fan of the Shanahan offense. But what concerns me about McDaniel is that his teams were always soft against physical teams and in cold weather environments, which has been the opposite of where the Eagles have thrived. Slick, $5 super chat, last one. We have Mekhi and Bigsby. Surely we can use them in negotiations and trading for a corner or a pass rusher. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, the Eagles already gave up 2 picks for Bigsby. Mekhi couldn't see the field with Houston, can't see the field with the Eagles. Now, could he be a better wide receiver 3 than Jahan Dotson? Maybe. But I just don't know how much they'll bring you in a trade. Now, you're going to have to give up picks. And if you give up picks and maybe one of those players for a team that has a need for a running back, has a need for a wide receiver, those are options. But I don't think they're going to move the needle all that much. All right, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for daily, nonstop, year-round coverage of the Birds. Win or lose, I'm always here for you.